Welcome once again to Moral Calibration. Yeah, thanks for tuning in once again. Welcome back, everyone, family, conscious community. Right now, today we're going to talk about controlling men as so labeled by their significant others. Controlling individual of the relationship, whether it's man or woman, as so titled by their counterpart. I think it's safe to say, in general, mostly men are referred to as controlling when it comes to relationships, whenever it's titled as such. What are these characteristics that make a person get called controlling? What are the reasons people would make a person say you're controlling? Let's start from the male's perspective. If a male is controlling, what are some of the things that you might have heard a woman say as to the reasons? Maybe they tell them where to go, where not to go, what to do, what not to do, what to wear, what not to wear, those type of things. Just controlling a person as if they were a child, controlling their whole personality in a sense, or whatever makes that individual uncomfortable. Maybe they tell them what they would rather see, so maybe that comes off as controlling. I guess you have different levels to it. Let's go the most extreme we can. So a person that stops a person from doing certain things, or a person that tells a person how to carry themselves. For example, now you can or can't go here. Now, if a man tells a woman she can't or can go somewhere, I think one thing's for sure, there are some situations that maybe there was good intention behind what came off as controlling. We also have situations where the man is truly being controlling, and by using force, physically preventing them from doing certain things, or using violence, to get their way. That's some real extreme levels of control, because now the person is not secure enough in themselves to see the opposite of their request. Yeah, people ask me, how come I'm always wearing this jacket? Well, I wear it when I want to be comfortable, because this is very comfortable and a very sentimental sweater. Yeah, I wish you could feel it. It's different. It's some soft velour type of thing. See, and the inside is slick. You already know. Low key, comfortable, athletic. You can do anything in this jacket. And it's fresh. Smell good because I just washed it. So, hey, the shirt be different though. The shirt be different though. Hey, but seriously, controlling men, what do they do? So you got, say for example, you got the true extreme control freak, and you have, let's go to the far other side, where you have, we're not talking about anybody in the middle, and the anything in the middle is less, let's say it's not the focal point for whatever reason. I feel like anything in the middle is subject to too much controversy. We're going to the full extremes on both sides. So the other side would have someone who comes off as controlling, but maybe has good intentions behind it. Now, at the end of the day, they both seem controlling. So, message to men, Like, if you have good intentions in there, you're gonna have to work hard and dig deep to find ways to come off and not be controlling. So I'm sure that you have a very small few of individuals who fit that criteria, that they actually are trying to come from good heart, good perspective, and just are unable to deliver it in the way as desired. Now, even still, within those type of individuals who are doing their best to make sure it's from good intentions and trying to deliver it as best as they can, you might have some women or counterparts that know that it's easy to say a man is controlling. So they're going to go ahead and take advantage of that when it's convenient. So if there's something they want to do and there's an opposition to it with reasoning, and they're not paying attention to the reasoning, they're more focusing on the fact that someone has the audacity to try to advise not to do something they really want to do. But again, if we're talking about significant others here, so if this is your significant other, anything they advise right off the top should be something you should take into consideration. If granted y'all have a decent relationship where y'all do advise each other things that are from the heart in nature. So now you have these women that are gonna go ahead and take advantage that they know it's easy to label someone as controlling. So they'll give it such a fight, turn it into an issue where it now becomes like they're controlling. I think one of the best ways to really avoid becoming controlling or having these type of conflicts where you feel like you're in a position to voice an excess amount of opposition to things, you got to do your work beforehand. You've got to make sure you do your due diligence beforehand, before y'all form a relationship. If you want to be able to avoid a certain level of discrepancies and conflicts, and again, if you want to try to avoid the feeling of ever being called controlling in any way, shape, or form, you got to do your due diligence beforehand as much as you possibly can. And what I mean by that is get to know the person as much as you can beforehand. Make sure y'all really on the same page. They understand what you like, what you're looking for, and vice versa, and change is subject and we're involuntary to it. Evolution is something that's just subsequent. So of course, people are going to have different paths that they want to embark on. And I think we have to continue to understand that there's marital vows, right? So those vows need to be adhered to, and part of that marital commitment is to honor each other's, to continue to honor each other, especially when it comes to requests, and do unto others as you would want done to you. Do unto others as you would want done to you. That works instantaneously in a close-knit relationship. So a person should never have a problem doing for somebody, knowing that, they're going to do this for me. That always works. That's the flow, and that's the ebb and flow. So you should never have a problem. Now, when a person doesn't do for you, and you start seeing like they're not doing back for you as you're doing for them, then obviously, that's one thing that can lead to a breakdown. Whereas the other person will just stop doing so much. But getting back to the point, which is like certain women will take advantage, and a person could be telling them, hey, their significant other could be telling them, hey, don't go down that street because I know what's up, and I already got intel. And sometimes that intel may not be able to express that intel in words that you can understand. So it can come off as you just want to control them. So that's always going to be a challenge. The more and more you can get to know a person beforehand, I think the less and less you'll have conflicts down the road. Because when you're evolving together, you're going in a direction together. Whether or not persons take slightly different paths, you're still navigating together in a linear format. So to go backwards now, you're causing the other person to either detour so drastically that they're gonna crash because they're not prepared for this. They're not prepared in their soul or mentally for this, whether their heart wants them to do it or not, to satisfy the other person. Some things are just not meant to just transition so easy without accidents or without damage, catastrophe sometimes. So the changes should not ever be so drastic where it's causing the other person to be like, well, wait a minute now. This is not what we signed up for. This is not what you had going on before. In fact, this was the opposite. You were against this type of thing. So now how could you embark on this and say it's a new personality trait or something you've suppressed and you want to do it? Now, if you suppressed it, then I think it's only fair to take part of the blame and understand that you faked something. You put up a front and you suppressed it because you realized that was a front. I mean, I feel like if you work with certain people and you explain to them and over time you can evolve together and morph together. But if you just pull something out of the hat and say, hey, I'm going to start doing this because I want to feel liberated, or for whatever the reason is, that's something that you're doing, depending on how drastic it is, how does it affect your significant other now? Because if they were to do this similar thing to you, would you be able to take it? If they were to do a comparable thing to you, would you be able to take it? So, say for example, you knew how a person carried themselves before because you took 1 whole month or 1 whole year or 3 years or 4, 5, 6, 7 years to get to know them and build with them to see, you know what, I feel like what's important to me is seeing how a person is when they live with you. So you embarked on living with them for a few years before you engaged in marriage or escalated a relationship to the highest level. So you get to know this person, so you know that, for example, listen, you don't eat, let's say for example, you don't eat meat, because that's something that's pretty significant if you're in terms of diet. If you met someone and you know that is a significant thing in your relationship, that's important to you, is their diet, and you know that you met someone that's also vegan and you're a vegan, or vice versa, you met someone that eats meat and you eat meat, and things transpire to a level where the other person changes, and it's not for any emergency health reasons or anything like that. it's just simply because they want to be able to, they feel like they maybe have been suppressing something and they just want to open up. Does not the other person have a right to say, hey, what's going on here? You coming off track. This was a certain thing that you understood. We understood that we agreed on the reasonings behind it, and those reasons should never be removed because they're solid, whatever they are. So for you to change doesn't mean the other person can just instantly not love you. It's just a matter of, it creates now some undercurrent. It creates now some room for errors, room for arguments, room for issues, room for breakdowns. So even what if it's a way a person dresses? Say, hey, listen, I liked you. When I first met you, you wore nice, sexy attire, tight clothes, short skirts. That's the kind of girl the person liked. And now all of a sudden, they don't dress like that no more. We wear baggy clothes, tall, long dresses, and some sort of big evening gowns and all types of huge overall type of things, and some big shawls and some huge blankets they wear. Now you're like, wait a minute here. Like now we're not communicating on our love language here, because that was that person's love language. That happened to be one of that person's love language. The way you dressed, and you solidified that was your characteristic. And now you changed. Now the person is saying, hey, I don't really like that. And they mention it from time to time. I think it's perfectly fine that the person opens up and reveals their feeling, how they feel about it. So they should let you know, hey, I love you, but hey, I don't really like that. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So that's a scenario that's a woman could be like, hey, that's controlling. You're trying to control me, tell me how to be, how to dress, and I don't want that. I don't know. Y'all tell me. What are some scenarios where a woman takes advantage of the labeling of a man as being controlling when he's really not? There's some reasoning and some legitimacy to his argument. However, the necessary criteria is that man must not be using control, violence, aggression in any way, shape, or form to enforce this control. We're talking about men who just merely mention and speak and reason and utter that what they're feeling. Oh my gosh, a man uttering what he feels. Never heard of it before, right? When it really happens, it happens, and it's rarely liked. So that's the scenario. That's scenario A. What's scenario B? What are some examples of person A? I'm just using women versus men right now. It could be either or. Scenario B, woman Scenario B is saying woman is labeling a man controlling, and they are controlling. What are some of those things that men do nowadays that's considered controlling? So just those two scenarios, and it can be switch up the genders around. So again, if a man says, yo, you change this, the man says, hey, you're into natural lifestyle. Now you're going back to putting on weaves and all that type of stuff. That's not how I met you. It's different. To me, it's different if you go from, let me not say that, because a man has his right if he likes black women or likes any other type of women with weave, I said black because generally they dominate who puts in weaves and extensions. Yeah, see, so yeah, obviously men who like these type of hair, that hey, that's up to them. They're entitled to that. And if that's they spoke to you as that's one of their love languages, some men like it, but not necessarily a deal breaker for them if you change and go natural. There are men that it is an absolute deal breaker for them if you change your hair from unnatural to natural. That is deal breaker for some men. So, like, so for example, now if that's the case, and this man now becomes disgruntled, you're gonna say he's controlling because he wants, that's not the hair he didn't say which specific hairstyle to wear. He just said he wanted you to have extensions. Back, like, he didn't even know what to call it. He's just saying that's just not what it was when I met you. That's all he knows. So whose fault is it? I mean, you guys chose each other. So if you chose a man that his love language, one of his love languages, I mean, one of the things in his love languages, or if you chose a man that in his love language he requires that type of hair, and you portrayed that that's how you're going to be, then you're part of the equation that created any type of issue. Should you have decided to change your hair drastically, and that man is not going for it, then you know what? You shouldn't have chosen a man that has that criteria in his love language. So now, when it's just a relationship, man and woman, or one-on-one relationship, and you know that things can be easier split apart, just feelings involved. What if you have children? Or what if you have 20 plus years involved and assets involved? Or more importantly, what if you have children involved? 2, 3, 4, 5 children involved, or one. Now it's like you're playing these games, war of words, using war of terms and labeling, using a label war that can create such breakdown that can result in the inevitables, whatever those are. And I'm sure any of those inevitables, regardless of which of those outcomes it would be, I would guarantee it is a ill fortune for the children. Controlling men, controlling women. What do they look like? What are their attributes? What are their characteristics? You have some women who they control men by giving them certain type of passive aggression inside the home, if they do certain things that they don't like. Certain men can't get to even really voice to certain levels because of the emotional abuse they would have to endure. It's not worth it. That's controlling. There's probably other words and other labels for it, but I'm talking about when they use it, when women use certain things specifically based on them not getting something they asked for, or not getting their way from you specifically, controlling you. It's controlling your personality or your actions or your movement. Or worse, your thinking. The worst of all. The controlling of a man's thinking is the worst of all. When they try to change a man to think feministic. I mean, if the woman happened to be a rare masculine thinking woman, then a man that is a rare predominantly feminine thinking man, they would work probably work good together. But we're talking about duality, reciprocity. We're talking about reciprocation. What are some other ways women control men? Let's see, like, what if you have a lot of stories I hear that women control men, not letting them go certain places. So, the fellas be like, hey, your wife, your woman letting you go here today, or she letting you go there, here or there. And it becomes like a jovial thing because, hey, you got to do what the woman wants. There's nothing wrong with that. Sure ain't. Especially if she's doing what you want. Nothing wrong with that. You do for each other, sacrifice for each other, make it. You become uncomfortable in some situations for each other simply because, you know what? It's gonna come forward to me. So, not worried about it. Nevertheless, it's controlling. And I'm sure there's other ways. I want to hear, what are some ways? I don't know. I hear more stories about how men control women, supposedly. I think one thing I can really extract from thinking about all that is definitely have to be cautious in women who misuse the controlling label simply because they're not getting what they want. And it's gotten to the point where the man can no longer express it in a way that seems acceptable to you, because it's simply, you're not going to accept any of the reasonings that come with that, because at the end of the day, you're now looking at it as whatever he says or whatever he wants of her is going to be controlling. So regardless of the reasonings, solid or not, if you got a million solid reasonings to back it, it's not going to hold no weight, because she's got to prove that point that she's going to do what she wants, regardless if it causes harm or some sort of detriment to their health. They're still going to do it. So again, make sure you filter out as much in whatever those things that are important to you in your love language. Make sure you all true them up together, solid. Make sure you make them solid within each other before you form any heightened relationship with each other, because that's important. People can change, yes, but you want to minimalize it as much as you can by establishing the things that are important to each other. And that can never be too much. You can never do too much of that. You can never do too much of that. You got to keep going. Make sure you know in and out this person. Hey, you wear short, skimpy, sexy attire. Don't change up on me, because that's what I like, right? That's what you like. So you got to keep that going. Now, you can evolve with the person. The person got to be on board. Otherwise, you're just doing something for you. Person's telling you, hey, you know what? Yeah, it worked out nice. I like it. I like the change. Let's go with it. Actually, or on second hand, maybe they don't like it. You know what? Nah, this is not how we met. And you definitely knew that this was an important thing to me. Hey, you know what? All right. That's a battle. Someone's gonna have to choose who's gonna be affected and who's gonna just suck it up and swallow their spit, or just like go through with it, take it all the way, do what you got to do, see what the outcome is. I think that's foolish and irresponsible when you have children involved. This is not some fly-by-night thing, willy-nilly just run around. Oh, let me try this, let me do this, let me try that. Oh, I never did this before, let me do this. Yeah, you got a significant other that if they ran around and did it, would it be a problem to you? You may say no, but would it really be a problem to you? you got some controlling women that when the men do put that to the test and say, hey, you know what, I'm going to try doing some of the things you do in my way, shape, and form. I'm going to do some of the things that maybe perhaps gives you the feeling a comparable way. So guess what? Now there's a problem. Now there's going to be, you have some controlling women who will find ways to prevent them from doing it with their passive aggression, the whole you sleep on the couch thing, you know. So, control freaks. Control freaks, you just made a mistake if you chose a true straight up control freak. A real control freak that uses violence. I mean, obviously, no normal person is going to accept someone who exposed that they use violence and certain levels of aggression to accomplish their controlling desires. Obviously, that probably unfolds, right? There are peculiar situations that need insight, and I would suggest, marriage counseling or some sort of counseling, regardless of, relationship status. Go some sort of relationship counseling, and so both persons can get an understanding of where their issue is in the situation, and they can, that's how you can be able to get closer to the source of the problem. And so super real control freaks now using aggression. What is going on there? I mean, you've got alcoholics as a source. You've got the fact that they may not even like that person anymore, despise that person to the point where everything is just results of violence because that's how they take out their aggression, that they made a bad choice with the person or something. They feel like that's their way of getting off that anger. So if you have these underlying elements that's causing a person to use violence and aggression to be controlling, that's a unique thing right there. I mean, that can be discovered it doesn't take much to discover that, close friends and family members can easily discover that, but we're not talking about that specifically. Who wants to talk about that? There's a million of those stories you can go hear of real case situation of one person or the other using aggression and violence, and it was because they wanted to be controlling in some way. We're not really talking about them. It's not really the time for me to really hear about those stories. Those can get real wild. I'm talking about those hidden stories you don't get to hear about. Those ones that there's so much mental games going on the inside where the outside gets to just see what was labeled. So now just get labels getting tossed around. Oh, controlling. What is that? What is that? Should a person just hear one person call another person controlling and automatically assume, yeah, that's a controlling person? They did that? Oh, what? They did that? Oh, man. What was their reason? There's no reason for that. They should never do that. That's controlling. Did they use violence and prevent you or step in your way or do something to stop you physically from going and accomplishing or doing whatever you wanted to do? No. So if there was none of that, it was just mere utterances and reasoning and talking, now we have a different context here. These aren't the average questions that are going to be asked by the listener when they're hearing someone being titled as controlling. So it comes down to the root, the source, the horse's mouth. It comes down to those who are going to go ahead and use that label, knowing that they're digging themselves into a foundation that they're going to have to make sure stands upright when the test of time comes. what are some other things controlling men or women do? I'd love to hear it. So give thanks once again for tuning in to Moral Calibration. Subscribe, like, comment. You know, you want to hear certain topics, be sure to comment so, or send me a message. If you want to talk about certain specific things, just send a comment. You know, I got you.